Sarada Uchiha finally got that Mangekyou Sharingan Gold Club members award card and immediately got handed the Uchiha clan family welcome basket. You get a healthy dose of trauma, you get eye damage, and the looming threat of darkness. Her parents really looked at the clan history and said, maybe if I stay quiet long enough, the generational curse will just uninstall itself. Meanwhile, Chocho is potentially about to solve a biological apocalypse with a barbecue set of chips and friendship, and you have Sumire. She is one suspicious Amato conversation away from inventing ninja LASIK surgery that is sponsored by depression that will help Sarada out. And somehow, despite all of this sounding like the weirdest hospital fundraiser in anime history, despite all this sounding like the wackiest slice of life medical ninja anime show in history, this might actually become one of the smartest teamwork storylines that Boruto's done in years, depending on the direction Ikimoto takes this. So join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video where we tackle the tricky subject, and reminder, the chapter drops on the 20th this month on Manga Plus, free to read, and we are on spoiler watch, so when the full leaks drop, I will bring you the video on the leaks, and the chapter review may be out on the day of the official release or a couple days after, depending on when we get the full leaks and how much time the review editor is going to need. The thing that makes Sarada's situation so dangerous right now is that this is the first time that the series has forced her to fully confront the cost of power. Up until now, Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan awakening, it has been something that we know is a emotional payoff, an emotional power-up. There was a little bit of hype there. There was a lot of symbolism there, and it was the long-awaited moment that Uchiha fans have been waiting for ever since we saw Sarada's character introduced. But Chapter 34 changes the framing completely because Sakura finally says the quiet part out loud to her daughter. Hey Sarada, if you keep using this power recklessly, you're gonna go blind. Not maybe, not potentially, not hey, there's a little bit of a risk here. No, you're gonna go blind and it's gonna last forever. And the important thing here is that Sakura, she isn't fear-mongering. She knows exactly what happens because Uchiha clan, they have a history that is basically one giant OSHA violation. She watched Sasuke deteriorate. She knows exactly what Itachi went through. She knows what Mangekyou Sharingan overuse does to the optic nerves. She saw it with Sasuke firsthand in the 5 Kage summit. She knows what damage her daughter is walking into. This isn't some mysterious side effect. It's been a established consequence that has existed in the Naruto lore for the almost 30 years that Naruto's been a manga. Which, reminder, we are 3 years away from the 30th anniversary. This means that Boruto now has a massive opportunity. Not to break the lore, but instead to evolve it. And for traditionalists like me, you know that that's something that I'm shaking at my boots over, but there is a chance to evolve the lore. Because once Chocho and Sumire reacted with the concern we saw, the story quietly opened a very interesting door. Neither girl can magically cure the Mangekyou Sharingan blindness, not without destroying what is almost 3 decades of lore in Naruto. But both of them can help Sarada survive the road long enough as she walks through the darkness until Sarada gets that final adjustment to use Mangekyou Sharingan via EMS or whatever method Ikimoto goes with. So honestly, that's a little bit more interesting narratively than some random miracle cure, because Naruto at its best was never about characters succeeding alone. That is why I'll always say we need one-on-one fights thing. I hate that narrative. That is not the beauty of Naruto. The strongest emotional moments, especially in part 1 of Naruto, it came from the characters realizing they needed other people, not just for battles, but also just in the interactions themselves, to pull people through the darkness. Naruto needed Iruka in the first chapter. Sasuke needed Team 7 even when he hated admitting it. That's why him leaving the village hit so hard. Gaara needed Naruto to pull him out the darkness. Lee needed Guy. Tsunade needed Naruto to pull out of despair. The series constantly pushed this idea that strength wasn't just about carrying burdens alone. It was about having people willing to carry part of that burden with you. That is something that I do feel like at times just based on various things that I read in the fandom that a lot of people tend to overlook and forget. Boruto has flirted with this theme before, but Sarada's current situation might finally allow Ikimoto to fully lean into it. And the beautiful thing is that Chocho and Sumire, they would be able to help Sarada in a completely different way because they understand different parts of who Sarada is. They both represent different sides of female friendship to Sarada. Let's just start with Chocho because honestly, this one sounds like completely goofy on paper. And if you're in the Discord server, you know that like, hey, I make fun of Chocho a lot. I like the character, but she's low-hanging fruit to make fun of. But there's also a disturbing amount of sense that this makes. The Akimichi clan's entire combat system revolves around converting calories into chakra. Food isn't just food to them, it's fuel, it's medicine, it's power. Their clan pills alone massively amplify chakra production. You get like all these huge power boosts depending on which pills you take. Even dating back to Naruto Part 1, it's strongly implied that the Akimichi had specialized nutritional knowledge far beyond anything normal shinobi had because their techniques demanded it. Chocho growing up in that culture means that she would naturally think about helping Sarada through nutrition and management. Yes, I'm talking about Chocho giving Sarada some magical potato chips. Sounds wacky, but just bear with me for a second, because the second part's going to be a little bit more serious with Sumire. Not discounting Chocho, but I am saying just stick with me for a second. This is incredibly in character for Chocho. Chocho is the kind of friend who would absolutely hear eye damage caused by chakra overuse and immediately start shoving protein bowls at Sarada like an aggressive gym trainer that's possessed by Gordon Ramsay. Eat this. Chocho, I'm not hungry. Cool, eat it anyway before your eyeballs explode. This has all these nutrients you need. What are you, Sarada? You're an idiot sandwich. That sounds comedic, but underneath the humor, there's a genuine emotional intelligence there. Chocho's not a medical ninja. Good God, she's not a medical ninja. She's not a scientist. Good God, thank God for that. She can't solve the Mangekyou Sharingan problem. So naturally, she would try helping in the way that she understands best. Supporting Sarada's physical condition so she doesn't overtax herself. Shove her mouth full of all kinds of food. And this matters because chakra exhaustion absolutely does worsen ocular strain in Naruto. The Sharingan itself does consume chakra. That's been established multiple times. It's not just the Mangekyou Sharingan. Mangekyou Sharingan techniques, though, they cost even more chakra. Sarada's specific Mangekyou abilities are especially taxing because Ohirume manipulates gravity on a large scale while also allowing for remote detonation and flight. That's absurdly chakra intensive. That's not the same as making a cute little fire and saying, look at these black flames. The more exhausted Sarada becomes, the more likely she is to lean harder into that brute force type of usage. That's why Sakura is saying, like, depending on the circumstances of when you use this power, it can burn out very quickly. Chocho trying to help Sarada through nutrition, it makes a lot of practical sense. Again, it's not going to stop the blindness, but it could be Chocho's way of saying, I'm going to try to help you slow the damage. That's her way of trying to help. And honestly, that's the most important part because sometimes the people you care about, they can't fix your suffering, but they can at least make it easier for you to endure. That, at the end of the day, that's real friendship. If you have a friend like Chocho, you are extremely blessed. And that would give Chocho a meaningful role beyond comedic relief. One criticism Boruto sometimes gets is that friendship outside of the emotional core doesn't always receive enough depth in the manga. The storyline changes, all of that when you see Chocho potentially helping Sarada through something deeply personal, it gives the friendship more emotional weight. So far, the only thing we've really seen with Chocho and Sarada that Ikimoto has drawn is that flashback when Sarada awakened on Mangekyou Sharingan and Chocho was going on about a boyfriend, which, a reminder, the Sarada Uchiha arc that was actually part of Naruto's manga that was drawn by Masashi Kishimoto. That's the epilogue manga for Naruto. So I'm not counting that when talking about Ikimoto works. So I said to say this, Chocho understands insecurity better than I think people give credit for. I think it's easy to overlook that because of how confident she is. But Chocho is somebody that when you go back to Naruto Gaiden, she had feelings of inadequacy to a degree. So watching Sarada slowly lose her eyesight would absolutely hit her harder because unlike a normal injury, blindness could directly impact Sarada's self-esteem. It could directly impact her future directly. Sarada wants to be Hokage. A blind Hokage, that changes everything. Not impossible, but it's like, can you even see the village that you're trying to rule over? Nah, fam, you can't see shit. And that changes everything. Now, let's just move over to Sumire because that's where things get interesting. And you know, there's something Sumire could do that would absolutely piss me off if it happened. Not gonna rant when it happens as long as it's explained well. Sumire is arguably the perfect character to explore the technological side of this problem without breaking the Naruto lore. Notice the wording here, the technological assistance, not magical healing, not scientific healing. That distinction matters a lot because if Boruto suddenly introduced a machine that could completely reverse Mangekyou Sharingan blindness, I'd be one of the first people saying it's bullshit. Mangekyou Sharingan and Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan exist as a connected power for a reason. The lore established that cost already. Overuse Mangekyou, the only way to reverse it is Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Removing it, it cheaply destroys the tragedy that's associated with the Uchiha clan in my opinion. But assistance, support systems, adaptations through science, that's completely different. That is in balance. Again, assistance. And that also fits Boruto's themes perfectly because Boruto has always explored where does science fit in the world of shinobi? Where is that intersection between traditional shinobi tradition and advancing technology? Sumire has worked alongside Amato and Katasuke to create tools that assist Sarada's declining vision, and it makes narrative sense on multiple levels. Imagine a specialized contact lens that could reduce the ocular strain, reduce the amount of chakra that is used by Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan. That is something that could help. Imagine a targeting assistance that could be used to compensate for Sarada having blurred eyesight. That could work. None of that reverses blindness. It simply helps Sarada function despite the deterioration. I think that's in bounds. I think that's fair. And honestly, I think there's something that is deeply poetic to that, because Sarada's generation was always meant to surpass the one before it by evolving differently, not by erasing consequences. That is the entire philosophy behind Boruto's era. Naruto's generation, I think we would agree, inherited suffering and they endured it. Boruto's generation, they're inheriting suffering, but they're also the beneficiaries of innovation. That's why Ninja Tech keeps appearing in the series in various different ways. Very good video on Patreon that won't be coming out until next month about technology in Boruto that you're really gonna love. But I said to say this, Sumire specifically is the ideal bridge between those two worlds because she understands both the emotional support and the scientific development. Unlike Amato, who views problems clinically, Sumire would approach Sarada's condition emotionally first, and that matters because Sarada doesn't need someone treating her like a broken weapon. She needs support before anything else. Sumire and Chocho being there and potential concern in chapter 34, that matters. That's a emotional investment. There's also another layer here I think people can overlook easily. Sumire helping Sarada through technology would subtly mirror Sakura helping Sasuke and Naruto helping Sasuke when he was going through his darkness. Not the blindness, but the darkness of his soul. I think that that is growth and evolution as well as a very good parallel. A different parallel, but a good one. It reinforces the idea that Sarada's generation is more emotionally connected than the previous Uchiha generations ever were. Because let's be honest, the old Uchiha clan, they had emotional communication skills of raccoons fighting in a Walmart parking lot at 2 a.m. Everything is secrecy, isolation, pride, trauma. Nobody talked, nobody healed. Itachi just cut some heads off and said, Obito, let's get out this bitch. Everybody unlocked forbidden eyeballs and then they took eyeballs at their close relatives. They just hoped that the depression would sort itself out later. Sarada's generation feels different. And that difference matters narratively because Sarada accepting that help would directly challenge the toxic isolation historically tied to the Uchiha clan. That's why the storyline could become very powerful. That's why teamwork matters. Boruto's manga has a real chance to reconnect to one of the strongest aspects of early Naruto Part 1. Part 1 Naruto constantly reinforced the idea that teamwork was survival. Kakashi drilled it into Team 7 from the start. Those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. The Chunin exams rewarded adaptability, teamwork, and coordination. Sasuke retrieval arc showed multiple people risking their lives for one person, multiple squads at that, because the Sand siblings were in there as well. Naruto himself only survived because people continuously stood beside him throughout the 72 volumes of Naruto's manga. Over time, especially later on in the story, the power scaling and escalated, and everybody focused on the one-on-one moments. Again, wipe your ass with the one-on-one moments. They don't matter in this context. Boruto has occasionally struggled with the same issue though. But Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan deterioration, it creates the perfect opportunity to bring focus back down to the interpersonal support. Because right now, Sarada physically cannot afford to handle everything alone. And honestly, that's probably terrifying for her. Sarada inherited a lot from Sasuke psychologically. She carries burdens internally. She pushes herself recklessly. She tries to stay composed under pressure. She definitely has the stubbornness of both of her parents. Becoming Hokage is not just a dream for her. It is tied directly to her self-worth and her identity. So the idea of weakness or blindness, it probably horrifies her. The idea of being dependent, but this is a lesson she has to learn. And that's exactly why Chocho and Sumire matter so much. That is why just them being in the hospital room, even if they do nothing else, that's why it matters so much. Sarada is not alone. That hits even harder when you realize for 3 years, it was basically Sarada and Sumire standing against the world themselves. Chocho represents emotional warmth and physical support and a lot of food. Sumire represents intellect as well as a different type of support. Together, they become people standing beside Sarada when her own body is starting to betray her. That's not weakness, that's trust. And trust has always been one of Naruto's strongest themes. One of the most underrated lines in the franchise comes when characters protecting others don't mean rejecting protecting yourself. Naruto himself learned this repeatedly. So did Kakashi, so did Gaara. Even Sasuke eventually learned it after spending years trying to carry hatred alone. Sarada right now is at that crossroad. The emotional choice that she makes, does she isolate herself because of the burden or does she allow other people to help her carry it? That matters way more than her eyesight. It's eventually going to get restored, but this matters for Sarada's character. From a writing perspective, honestly, this route is a lot smarter because it preserves the tension. If Sarada's blindness can just be erased instantly, then there's no emotional weight behind the Mangekyou Sharingan usage anymore, especially when she fights Hidari for the purposes of saving Sasuke. Every battle now becomes more dangerous. Every decision matters. The people around Sarada become essential instead of background decorations. That's how you make supporting characters matter again. Not by making them randomly stronger, but by making them emotionally necessary. A good writer knows how to do that. It's ironically why I do think that Ikimoto prefers Naruto Part 1 over Naruto Part 2. By his own words, he prefers Naruto Part 1, and I agree with him. At the end of the day, everything around Sarada right now in this world is chaos, but grounding her through chaos and grounding her through the friendship that stands beside her in chaos, it matters. Because Boruto wants to have Sarada become the Hokage one day. It's part of his goal. And if Sarada is going to reach that goal, this is the lesson she needs to learn right now. A Hokage cannot stand alone. Naruto didn't become Hokage because he was the strongest. If that was the case, Naruto would become Hokage back during the Pain arc. He became the Hokage because people stood beside him willingly. He became the light that shined through the darkness consistently. Sarada, learning to accept help from Chocho, Sumire, or whoever else, That's going to quietly be one of the most important steps in her journey to taking the Hokage mantle from Naruto. Which, to further understand how big of a deal this is, you really need to check out this Naruto video essay here on the left.